Hey, just want to talk about some things that just don't make, there's, shocking, right? They don't make any sense. Okay, and that's, us bombing Yemen. The Houthis who had been very clear, in spite of what, you know, they had said during Biden's administration, they'd been very clear why they were attacking Israeli ships initially. I don't know if, maybe they did attack some other ships, or we just took it upon ourselves to protect the Israeli ships. Um, but so we had, my understanding is we've lost two FA18s. Um, and maybe not surprisingly, not to their anti-aircraft, um, but we just dumped them right the fuck over the side of the carrier. I think the first one was a couple weeks ago. I think they were moving it and kind of it got away from them on an elevator and just dumped it into the Red Sea. Then the most recent one sounds like maybe it could be pilot error because they were saying something about it landed but never came to a full stop. I don't know if that's that just sounds very tamped down, as if you miss all of um, the wires to catch your plane or the tail hook, and but you don't you don't do what you're supposed to do, which is you know go full throttle in case you need to take off again. I don't know. Who knows? Probably not. It was probably something far stupider. But so that's they're about 70 million each. So that's 140 million just in two planes, and they didn't even get fucking shot down. So, um, and then I'd heard we had lost 22 Rapier drones. They're about 20 million each. And so that's about. I think my math is really shitty. I mean, I for some reason don't. I'm just against doing it on the calculator, but I think that's 440 million. And we don't know the weapons packages, so maybe they had nothing. Maybe they lost a good amount of missiles with them as well. I don't know. Some of that I would think the Navy would recover. I don't imagine it's reusable though. So that's what, like, just round up to about $600 million right there. Just in hardware, of course. That's not paying the service members to take care of that or whatever. And let's just kind of back up though. Why are we attacking them? So it very very vague, rough. Well, because we're protecting trade. Whose trade? Do we send? Do we have a lot of trade that goes through there? No. That's like connecting China and Europe. So no, we don't really have a lot of our trade that goes through the Red Sea. And when that fiasco with the Signal meeting, where they had invited a journalist to talk about um, targeting and timing of an attack before the attack. And that was also put on kind of a self-destruct deal in Signal, which would, prevent anybody, if the journalist wasn't there and somebody found out, hey, you guys were talking about what on Signal, they could say they were exchanging fucking, you know, sausage recipes. We would never know because there's no way to get that information, to record that information. If you're working for the government, the national government at least, you know, whatever you do has to be, you know, tracked. And it's kind of ironic the people that want to privatize uh, everything, in which case we would know nothing about anything, are also the people who don't really want you to know what they're talking about, even though they're elected, people appointed through Trump in that case. But they were talking about, I believe, uh, you know, J.D. Vance had pointed out it seemed kind of weird that we were going to all these links, though Trump had said, "Hey, gonna get out of all the wars," right? Okay. Um, some people believe that, and really, you know, we're hopeful. Um, Shit, a lot of people were hopeful. Didn't really believe him, but if he sticks to it, great. But because we're basically, helping, you know, European Union out, right, with their trading. If we're supposed to be getting tough on, this was prior the tariffs and all that shit. If we're supposed to be getting tough on Europe about the trading and all, why are we bailing them out and spending, you know, like billions of dollars to do it, right? Because like putting, moving a carrier from, right off our coast to, the Red Sea, fully staffed, obviously. That's not fucking, like a couple million or something. That's, hundreds of millions. I don't, I'm guessing, but to have that many service members, that you're paying, as you should be, and then all that equipment, and then found out, it sounds like we're, Pentagon is getting their cues from open source intelligence. In other words, private individuals who think, hey, I think this would be a good thing to attack. But we'll talk about that another time. But so I mean, we're doing that, even though it looks like we're protecting Europe, and then we turn around and, but we're still over there though. It's like we can't help but always be attacking somebody. And if we're not, then who are we selling our arms to, right? And that's how we have, forever wars. Or, like people say, wars aren't meant to be won. Well, if you fucking win a war, you don't need to keep, you know, restocking your bases with new A18s or rapiers, or have the Air Force crying because they want, either I forgot what it was, like if they were wanting new B-2 bombers, which are fucking old, or they want a new bomber, or what. But I mean, Pentagon is always, and I guess that's their job. But I mean, they should be kind of realistic. They're getting over $1 trillion a year, and somehow they can't keep the fucking F-18s on the goddamn deck, so far as the Navy goes, or the targeting. They're you know turning to Peltier, or is that Peltier? Whatever it is. Um, you know, to, among other things, according to their brochures and shit, you know, scrape the internet for open source intelligence. So in other words, it's just like fucking AI, right? You go do something, you blog, something interesting, whatever, something unique. Well, it's like fucking AI's property now, and they'll get all upset that, you think that you own it or whatever. And even if you have copyright or whatever on that, they don't give a fuck. Like, what are you gonna do? Sue them? So, it's just none of that shit makes any sense. And so, final thought. I'm not sure quite if I said anything, you know, all that useful in this little take, but I mean, it is just a real mind fuck because getting on X and seeing how Trump is just totally, nobody can touch him. Where, he was the one who was saying we're gonna get those Epstein files out, right? You know, and now everybody's going after Pam Bondi for, like saying they're on her desk, then they're on the way, then suddenly she seems to not have them, she doesn't release them, etc. Or similarly, all of this, corruption and shit, right? That Elon Musk, Doji, whatever, is talking about, and but nobody's getting arrested, you know, and well, good question, right? Um, it's almost as if they don't have actual evidence. Strange. And similarly with the Epstein files, it's almost as if the president doesn't want them released. Wow, that would be just shocking. But, I don't know, man. It just seems like if he just up and said it, hey, I don't want them released, then everybody would suddenly, oh, hey, my bad. No, we shouldn't release them because, people, as Trump said, some people maybe aren't really that related to the situation, or, and might get hurt with, looking as if they're, in with, Jeffrey Epstein. So, anyway. All right. Well, I'm signing off here. See ya.